Hello, so I just finished reading week 1 of The Artist's Way. Hopefully you did too. This first week is all about recovering a sense of safety, which I think is super important as a major first step for any recovering artist. Julia really talks about how we as artists need to let go of fear, and the first thing she brings up is this concept of a shadow artist. And these are basically people who are afraid to become artists because they are stuck in between this fear of failure and this dream of actually taking action. And this essentially results in someone becoming a shadow artist, so pursuing a career path that's not directly related to the arts but maybe sort of adjacent to the arts, or someone who works with artists but isn't an artist themselves. That might be an artist manager, that might be a critic, that might be a commercial director, or someone who works in advertising. Of course, those are really fantastic careers, but for shadow artists, this really means that it's something that is not their ultimate goal, but something they ended up doing because they were too afraid to actually become the true artist that they want, whether that is to be someone who performs on stage, whether that's someone who writes novels. They are these intended artists who never actually become true artists. I personally relate to this so much, because like I mentioned in my first video, I'm working at a startup doing business development. There are some creative components to my job, but it is not focused on creativity. And even for myself, I kind of told myself like my main goal would be to one day become a film producer, basically financing other people's films, helping them fulfill their creative dreams, which is definitely something that I want to do because I do recognize that money is a huge barrier to people, you know, being able to create and distribute the stories that are really important. But at the same time, I do also want to be able to be more creative and to be able to share my voice through writing a novel. So while a lot of us were raised in ways that, you know, led us to becoming shadow artists, the first step is really to consciously dismantle those negative messages that we've been telling ourselves, that society has been telling us. And she says that allowing ourselves to play is actually really hard work, which I think is important to mention because I think people in the outside world tend to think that artists have it so easy, that they just create all day and it's not hard work. But in reality, being creative, being vulnerable, doing something that is so subjective and doesn't have an objective truth or doesn't have an objective good or bad is really difficult. This is also where she talks about the importance of nurturing your artist child, having this fierce need to protect it as it were a child, sort of thinking about it as you going on this creative journey is like a baby learning to walk. You have to accept that it's going to be messy, that the baby is going to start by learning how to crawl and then take baby steps and then eventually learn to walk. And importantly, she says that judging your early work is actually artist abuse, which I think sounds rather intense, but I think it is really damaging when you are so mean to yourself and you don't allow yourself to grow. You want yourself to be perfect from the beginning. And that's definitely something that I resonate with as a writer. When I type something out onto the computer or when I put it on paper, I just think like, oh my goodness, this is not publish worthy. This is not worthy of anyone looking at or reading. But that's not the point. And being mean to myself might actually cause me to say, you know what, I actually am not good at this, and cause me to stop writing. Rather than if I were kind to myself, then I would say, you know what, this is step 1 and I'm going to keep writing and my writing is going to get better. So I think that is important to remember, that being mean to your artist, especially when you're just starting off, is considered artist abuse. In this creative recovery process, we really want to focus on healing those old wounds, all of that negative self-talk, and also try really hard to not create new ones, so just being kind to ourselves. And along with this comes with allowing yourself to be a beginner, allowing yourself to not be good and being okay with that. In the next section, she talks about this concept of the enemy within, which are the core negative beliefs that we hold, that we've been fed as we've been growing up, that we've internalized. It's thoughts like everyone is going to hate this piece of work, or my friends and family are going to feel disappointed if I were to pursue this path, or I'm going to create really bad art and it's going to make me look like a fool. And ultimately, these beliefs are the ones that block us from being creative, because it means that we can give up, that we don't have to try, that we already failed before we started, so why even put ourselves out there? It makes us immune to vulnerability. So Julia really encourages us to confront these beliefs, which are definitely not facts, but just internalized messages that prevent us from being able to create. And in order to combat this enemy within, she counters it with this concept of the ally within. So these are the weapons of affirmation that actually allow ourselves to do our art, to explore the creative process, which is really the most important part. She talks a lot about how having the courage to show up is way more important than actually being talented. Of course, hopefully your skills develop over time, but if you want to be someone that's just purely talented and is going to make it without being willing to fail, then you're really not going to go anywhere. And the one thing that really struck me that she said was that if we were 1/10 as good at positive self-talk as we are negative self-talk, we would notice enormous changes. And I think that's so true. I think I don't even recognize when I am being negative towards myself, but it happens so often, and it is rare that I actually give myself positive affirmations. And I just think about how much I would be able to progress if I wasn't holding myself back by saying these mean things to myself. So she really talks about the power of positive affirmations and its ability to give us a sense of hope and safety, and she asks us to write these down and say them out loud. So at the risk of sounding super cheesy, I'm going to read them out loud. I might cut this out because it's going to sound super cheesy, but it's important. So here we go. I deserve love. I deserve fair pay. I deserve a rewarding life. I am a brilliant and successful artist. I have rich creative talents. I am competent and confident in my creative work. And then it asks us to write down 10 times, I, Julia, am a brilliant and prolific writer, which I did end up writing 10 times over. I think these exercises are really important. If you can get in the habit of doing them, I think it will work wonders on you when you start repeating them, when you start saying them to yourself and actually believing these things. So that's the end of week 1. Let me know in the comments what your biggest takeaway was from this chapter and what you're planning to do to sort of recover this sense of safety within your work, within your artistry. So now I'm going to go into the tasks of the week. I might go over all of them, I might just go over some of them. Let me know in the comments if you actually want me to go over all of them or if I should just sort of take the ones that were most interesting for me. Again, if you didn't watch my first video, what I explained was that this is actually my second time reading through the book. And the first time I read through it, I definitely did not do all of the tasks. So don't feel bad if you didn't do them, but just focus on the positive results from the tasks that you did do. And then if you have extra time in the future, just try to go back and do them. And if you only have limited time, what Julia suggests is to do the ones that you gravitate towards most, and then to also do the ones that you feel some resistance towards, because that might be where you actually really have to dig deeper in and learn more about yourself, and it can ultimately be a more effective task for you. So the first one is the morning pages. So now is a good time to look over this first week and count the number of morning pages that you've actually done. It doesn't matter if you did them actually in the morning, if you did them later in the day, it's totally fine. But just think about how it made you feel. For me personally, I actually only did 2 pages, which is a little unfortunate. Again, since this is my second time through the book, I know how powerful those morning pages are and how much they help me feel centered. So I think sometimes I don't do them because I don't want to sort of deal with myself and confront my issues. And the last 2 days that I've been doing it, I have found them to be super helpful. I know that they always help me get focused for the day, and so I just want to hopefully this next week commit to doing more pages. And one of the things with the morning pages this week was to write down any blurts, which are basically any negative self-talking points that you have about yourself, and then turn them into affirmations. And that's a task later on as well, so I'll talk about that in a bit. The second task was to go on your first artist date, which is really exciting. What I ended up doing was watching a movie on Netflix. It was this rom-com called Set It Up, which I had seen the trailers for when it came out like last summer, and I was like, oh my god, that looks like the cheesiest film. I do not want to watch that. I can watch better quality content, like blah blah blah. I thought it was too good for this film. I ended up just putting it on. I had a bowl of fresh raspberries. I poured myself a glass of sangria, some chocolate, and then also a pack of s'mores Oreos, which I would not recommend because they are delicious and I ate all of them by myself. But it's fine. I think it was a really lovely artist date. I did think like, oh, maybe this is kind of lame that I'm just sitting at home watching a movie by myself and eating all of this food. But I watch movies by myself all the time, but I'll usually do it in like a less nice fashion where I'm just sitting in my bed on my laptop. Whereas this time I actually put in the effort to watch it on the TV and get myself some nice snacks. And B, if I were to actually do this for a date, I would think it's super cute and I would probably have a lot of fun. So I just fully embraced it and had a lot of fun. And I think the best part of it was that I wasn't taking myself so seriously. It was just a fun film that I wanted to watch, so I did. So the third task was to time travel and think about 3 enemies of your creative self-worth. And honestly, I had a hard time doing this because I really can't pinpoint specific people that told me that my art wasn't any good to an extent that like really crushed me and that I remember to this day. And really the only person that I could think of was myself. So many people in my life have been supportive of my creativity, and it's been me who's been telling myself that I can't do it, or that I shouldn't do it, or that I should do something else. When I was applying to colleges, I told myself I should do something practical, I should study business, and it was my mom that was like, well, you really enjoyed video production in high school, and the business school that you want to go to actually has a really cool integration with the film school, so maybe you should do that. And she was supportive of me like going to work in the television industry if that was what I wanted. And so thinking back, I really think it was me who prevented myself from being creative. And I think that's a super important realization. At the same time, I don't want to just blame myself because I know a lot of it was due to sort of like these internal messages that I got from society and at times from my parents. I do want to think a little bit more deeply about that question, but that's sort of what I came up with for now. And then number 9 was to jot down any blurts and turn them into affirmations. So I'll share a couple. One of them that I wrote down was that I am not original. I tend to have this belief of like everything's already been done, like why should I do it? It's not going to be any better than someone who's already done it. And so the way that I changed that to an affirmation was that I said that I'm actually really unique and people really value my ideas and my thoughts. And another blurt that I had was that I am unqualified. This is just like a general statement in my life where I feel like I'm unqualified to do anything. And so for my affirmation, I put that I work really hard and I'm dedicated to delivering great results, which I think is a really positive attribute. And then the last task is to take your artist on a walk. So I actually did that right before filming this video. I went outside for about 20 minutes, just walked around the neighborhood, which was great for me because since I work remotely, I'm basically just inside all day and I have no real incentive to leave my house. But it was super lovely outside, blue skies, a little bit of a breeze. And honestly, there were times where I was like, oh man, I really wish I could like skip or like sing out loud right now. It really speaks to the power of doing these simple things that can really make a huge difference on your mood, your creativity, and maybe even give you a little bit of inspiration. So that is it for the tasks. And then the last part of this chapter are the check-ins. It asks how many morning pages you did. Like I said, I only did 2 this week, but I'm hoping to complete all 7 for this upcoming week. The second check-in is about the artist date. We covered that. And then the last question asks about any significant issues that were relevant towards your creative recovery. I think the biggest one for me, honestly, is just the negative self-talk that I have that really sort of constantly is telling me that I'm not capable or that I'm unqualified or that I really shouldn't even try because there's no point. And I think I'm just trying to make a more conscious effort to combat that and be more positive and just sort of keep allowing myself to explore my creativity without letting that weigh me down. Okay, so that was the first week. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. Next week we'll be talking about chapter 2, which is all about recovering a sense of identity. So if you're interested, subscribe to follow along and I'll see you next time. Bye!